how that budget is put together, drawing on reports from the different institutions. And looking at the CSL, you also already have heard from Commissioner Devlin about our lengthy discussion over concern about how the CSL has been calculated in the past and appears may continue to be calculated. Again, the concern about this is if that CSL or current service level is not, does not match the actual cost of maintaining service levels, it makes it very difficult to make a fully informed budget recommendation. So that will, I anticipate there will be more conversation about the CSL as we move forward. If you want, there was a handout on that process as part of the materials in the Funding and Achievement Subcommittee. I don't know if that doesn't carry forward.
But it's all accessible.
So I really would encourage any of you who want to know a little bit more about that to review any of those materials. And again, the F&A subcommittee is a really great place to learn more about budgeting processes. So if you are interested in the future, please do attend the meetings. We also, as part of that, had a refresher on the rubric that is used to review the capital projects that come from the community colleges and public universities. Again, material that would be really useful to review as we're heading into those to more discussions about the next budget. In addition to that, we heard about the legislative budget note. I believe that this was mentioned to you all in November, but the full report is in your packet for today. The budget note was a request by the legislature to examine the efficiency of the public universities, and that has been something that the agency and staff have been working on, worked in partnership with the institutions to develop that report. The full report is in your packet. Yesterday, we heard a panel discussion with some of the universities about their experiences, and we heard a lot about their challenges, the financial challenges that they have been continuing to face, and some of the ways that they are addressing those and partnering with each other for that. What was new to the F&A subcommittee yesterday, and is I think what should inform any discussion we have about the budget report are the recommendations that the staff has developed about what to do based on the findings of the spending and efficiency report. And while we were able to have an initial discussion about those recommendations in the subcommittee meeting yesterday, I would really encourage any of you to ask questions or make comments following Ben's overview of the report, but especially the recommendations, should I say bold recommendations for addressing some of the really deep and abiding challenges that the public universities are facing.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'll spend just a few minutes going a little deeper on this draft report that the staff presented yesterday to the subcommittee, and that we expect to bring back to you with a staff recommendation for adoption at a special committee and special commission meeting that we have not yet scheduled, but we'll work with you to schedule for January. So stay tuned on the scheduling for that, because this is a report that, under the direction provided by the legislature, is due back to them in advance of the February legislative session in the event that there are actions they want to take in response to our findings or recommendations. So I'll give you just a brief overview. The full report is in your packet as item 8.2A. That is effectively the final draft of the staff recommendations. We are going to continue to make some updates between now and January to reflect updated data that we receive from universities, or if there's any errors that we notice. We did get some helpful suggestions from subcommittee subcommittee members yesterday for some tweaks, but you are seeing in your packets what is likely very similar to be the report that you'll be presented with and encouraged to adopt at a special meeting next month. Key findings, just to orient you, key findings from the kind of bulk of the data and data analysis, which represents sort of the majority of the report. Those key findings are on page 5 of the report. They're summarized there. They actually emphasize the way that universities over the last decade are serving more students and producing more outcomes with less funding effectively. They're producing on that measure of kind of productivity, completions per investment, they're improving. Affordability is probably improving. Yes, expenses are growing, but they're growing in roughly the same ways that expenses or costs at other public agencies or public entities are growing. So we think there's some important findings here that might help to puncture some of the myths or mystique around higher education and universities in particular. The assertion that they're sort of wildly out of control with spending, it just clearly is not the case when you compare what Oregon universities are doing, including relative to other universities in the country with lesser public funding. So much of the report, the sort of bulk of the report, includes data from all 7 universities and then rolled up into aggregate totals that help to inform those kinds of findings. Then we go on to make recommendations, and those are on pages 35 to 38. Those recommendations are preceded by a little bit of discussion or analysis that acknowledges the strong work that Oregon universities are doing, but also doesn't shy away from the challenges that they face. And that frankly, we heard yesterday from university presidents and vice presidents about at the panel discussion that Commissioner Simnett mentioned. And they are essentially, when you look across all 7 public universities and roll up their data and make realistic assumptions about what they can expect in terms of cost growth, particularly related to labor costs, living wages for employees that keep up with the rates of inflation, what we know is on the horizon for benefits costs, PERS and healthcare in particular. So when you take that sort of growing costs associated with just their continued activity into account, and you make realistic assumptions about state investment, not what we want, but what we think when we look at recent history and look at the state budget forecasts and dynamics, what we think is realistic in terms of, or even slightly optimistic in terms of state investment. And then add to that a realistic forecast about what universities can derive in terms of tuition and fee revenue, assuming that, putting, for example, limits on what they can increase for students to pay, right? Because we know students are already sort of tapped out in terms of tuition prices. There are real costs to the universities of raising tuition even more than they already have. And taking into account the fact that the demographics in Oregon, like around the country, don't really support large the likelihood of large enrollment growth. Now, again, there are efforts underfoot at our institutions to unlock new communities for enrollment, but I think a realistic forecast has to be one that doesn't assume a lot of enrollment growth across the system as a whole. Taking all of that into account, we see, and I think universities would acknowledge too, we see continued sort of structural budget deficits facing these institutions collectively in the years to come, and that despite the cost cutting that many are doing today. The analysis goes on to say, there's no sort of silver bullet for that, right? There's no easy way out of this puzzle. And again, our advocacy for increased state funding and our support for universities to figure out how to grow enrollment, including from adult students, that is certainly part of the answer. And we put on the table the notion that the tools that institutions have to address those challenges individually are limited and not very good, right? They typically involve cutting programs and people, right? And that is not typically an effective strategy for increasing the long-term health and viability of an institution, right? I think there are ways to do that well, and I applaud and we appreciate the universities and their boards that are figuring out how to strategically realign their program array and make difficult cuts to programs and to costs. But we hope through these recommendations to put some additional options on the table, including ones that institutions don't have on their own. So for example, the first recommendation is that the legislature direct the HECC to come back to it in 2027 with a proposal or proposals for targeted institutional integration that could take different forms, right? At one end of the continuum, that could be a merger, the likes of which we are heard this morning about involving Willamette and Pacific universities. At the other end, that we're at a different point on the continuum, that can be a kind of looser affiliation of institutions that share certain services, whether those are administrative services or programs that they continue to deploy but in partnership, and therefore maybe relieving them from having to do everything or all of those things individually. The second recommendation is that the legislature should require academic degree programs at public universities to be periodically reviewed and renewed by the HECC. Today, you approve them, but there is no ongoing renewal or approval. The third recommendation is that the legislature consider appropriating a separate salary pool to support essential compensation increases. Right now, the legislature's decision-making about funding for public higher ed is disconnected from the work that and the responsibility that universities and their administrators and boards have to determine compensation for their employees. The fourth is that the legislature and the HECC consider prioritizing state capital investment in IT system replacement. This actually could help to feed recommendation number one, since IT systems and their ability to talk to each other is sort of a prerequisite for some of the kind of institutional integration that might be required or suggested by number one. It's also the case that IT system maintenance and replacement is a growing cost at universities. And finally, the fifth one is that the legislature should consider continuing to fund targeted sustainability and integration efforts at public universities as they did starting in 2023 with investment in TRUs and PSU for one-time funding for sustainability for initiatives that would produce greater sustainability over the long run. And we've been administering that and seen that it's borne some fruit. Before I stop and see if there are any questions or comments, I'll just note a couple of other items that are new in the report this month that were not in the subcommittee's report that are reviewed in November and that all commissioners had access to at that point. We have incorporated, starting on page 39, 12 pages of feedback from the universities where they're given the opportunity to explain how their experience may be a little different than what we've captured in the findings and analysis section of the report. They are unique institutions, right? And much of what we're doing is aggregating. And so naturally in that aggregation process, we lose some of the context and texture that we've helped to sort of bring forward through the university feedback that's included on pages 39 to 51. And then finally, if you're interested in the sort of comments that I made or the very high level analysis that I did about projections, what does this sort of budget deficit look like that we project going forward? That begins in the appendix. That data and those assumptions are contained starting on page 59 through 65. So towards the end of the document, you can see why we have reached staff have reached the kinds of conclusions we have about the fiscal challenges that we believe are going to continue to face universities, notwithstanding the kind of cost cutting or the budget balancing that they're doing today. Very notably in the case of SOU and PSU, but really across our University of Oregon and really across our 7 institutions that they're doing hard work now to bring budgets into balance. Unfortunately, our sort of projections and forecasts suggest that this could be required again, or would at least at some institutions, if we're not able to figure out more systemic ways of getting at these kinds of issues. And I think I'll conclude there. The subcommittee had a robust discussion yesterday. Welcome any questions, comments. If we do make up some time with this item, we will be more likely to finish on time.
Yes, Commissioner Davis.
Yes, thank you, Chair McCammon. Yes, I really like the institutional integration aspect of it. I guess like my question slash comment is, when was the last time all the universities came together, like all the chief of marketing officers came together for like a Oregon-wide like campaign? Because I know like a lot of them, compete to have like, oh, you come to our school, but like, when was the last time there was like a collective effort to just be like, hey, like, come to our school, like, if you want this, come here, or here, kind of like show like that there's like a shared goal for work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's such a great question and observation, and the answer to that is, it's been a while. But I think you put your finger on part of what we were trying to get at here, which is, there is, amongst the universities, there is, without a doubt, competition for a, flat or declining, potential market of students. And competition isn't inherently bad, but when we have 7 institutions, all of which are vital for their communities, and I should have said this during my report, the goal here is to sustain and help to thrive all 7 public universities, right? And to do so in an environment where you have a probably flat pool of students and there is competition, to do so in a way that doesn't create winners and losers, requires, in our view, a greater level of working together, right? And that's the thinking behind the institutional integration proposal. And perhaps one form of integration would be a sort of consolidated or combined effort to recruit and market and then, effectively share students. So we don't know exactly what this would look like. What's proposed here is effectively a planning process, a set of conversations that we would have over the course of 2026, but responding, I think, exactly to the phenomenon that you're describing.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so much. Other questions come? Commissioner Smith?
And as you pointed to, efficiencies and reducing offerings can kind of result in like an austerity toward death spiral for institutions, which is concerning. And I don't know if it's connected at all, but I'm wondering about the reasoning behind the recommendation to have HECC require academic degree programs to be periodically reviewed. Is that, to take heat off of the institution when they're closing a program? Because I would think the institutions know when they've got a program that isn't recruiting new students to it.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so when the HECC was established, one of its core responsibilities was to conduct approval or disapproval of new academic programs. And the thinking, it's quite clear in the statute, it's actually very explicit, was to prevent unnecessary duplication. And it reflected a view of the legislature at the time that even as we went away from a system, a capital S system, that we should still retain a high degree of coordination and differentiation, particularly at the graduate level, but even to some extent at the undergraduate level amongst our 7 public universities. And I think that the commission's role, working closely with the universities on new program approval, has helped to ensure that there is a differentiated approach when it comes to new programs. And we have heard from some that, over time, as programs evolve, adapt, as the market changes and some programs become more or less popular, that sort of coordination and differentiation responsibility needs to be maintained. And one way for the HECC to maintain an ongoing responsibility for coordination is through ongoing or periodic review of programs. And you mentioned, is it to sort of support the institutions that have, let's say, low enrollment programs in, the work in closing them? I don't know. Right, I think it is certainly to help to sort of spotlight for institutions and for the public where there's potential duplication or maybe in a shrinking enrollment environment where you might have to create, when we might want to look for a partnership approach, because this programs that, a discipline where we could have 3 programs in the state operating no longer really makes sense because of changing student interest, and maybe instead of 3, it should only be 2. What the HEC's actual specific role in that should be, I think remains to be worked out. It would be partly a function of the legislative conversation and partly a function of the HEC. If the legislature were to empower it, how would we actually undertake this responsibility?
Commissioner Lawson. Raise your hand. You're muted.
Oh, okay. Can try switching to the backup audio.
Commissioner Lawson, can you hear us? Oh, okay. Could another commissioner try speaking? Commissioner Devlin?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Okay, let's switch back to the main audio. That it may be.
But we'll come back to Commissioner Lawson when we can solve this problem. Okay, Commissioner Devlin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, as indicated by our vice chair, and we had a considerable discussion of this item in the F&A committee. I have made a request for a language change simply because I believe it needs to be expressed that when we make the observation that the cost of attendance has not exceeded inflation, we need to more carefully characterize that statement so that it's understood that that is true for those students that receive need-based financial aid and or fee remissions and tuition remissions. It is not true for students who do not receive those, because in all reality, those students and their families bear the full cost of any increases in tuition and fees. And some of those have been relatively substantial. Also, I think it should be noted that, you know, if we had really a broad financial aid programs that met the underlying needs beyond what the student and his family could, or her family could support, then you could make this statement more broadly. But the reality is that students' eligibility for financial aid runs out at relatively modest levels of family income. And the reality also is that as these costs increase, even for the students that do receive financial aid, their gaps widen, and the more that they have to borrow in order to be able to attend, depending upon what sort of assistance they receive. I simply ask for that clarification. The other 2 items I'd like to note is on the recommendation for when we're looking at IT systems. It would be interesting to find out, perhaps in some future F&A committee meeting, what the situation is with individual universities. Because I don't know, for instance, how much of the systems that they may need to upgrade, where there are on-the-shelf systems that could replace their existing systems. Often I have found in discussions in previous capacities in the legislature that one of the greatest trials in terms of replacing IT systems is when people want certain things to be unique in their system. And the more things that they want to be unique, the more pitfalls you potentially have in terms of cost and the system ultimately working. The final thing is on the recommendation in terms of looking at new degree programs and existing degree programs. I fully agree that HECC should have a greater role. In my short experience in the approximately 3.5 years plus that I've been on the commission, we've approved numerous new programs, an incredible number of new programs. And I know that they're reviewed heavily by staff. It just seems that somebody needs to review the efficacy of the decisions that are being made, both by the institutions and by the commission in approving those new programs. I tend to look at things from a student's perspective. And the worst thing I think that can happen is for a student to enter a program with certain promises and that program does not have enough students to survive, or things change down the road and the university is stuck with having to find ways for that student to meet the credentials for a program that no one will ever find in their catalog again, that's looking at what the situation was with that program, what the requirements were. So I do think we have to be careful as we create so many new programs at the 7 universities.
Thank you, Commissioner.
The end of my comments.
We're gonna come back to Commissioner Lawson. Are you able?
Yes,
Awesome.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry about that. I wasn't sure what happened. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Smith's question was very similar to mine, and the answer to her question was just perfect for me. So I don't have any further questions or comments.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Simnett.
I'll be brief because I already have spoken on this issue. But I just wanted to say, to extend my appreciation to Ben and the staff for coming forward with some recommendations that feel pretty substantial to me. And that would, if they're adopted and in whatever form they are adopted, would create some substantial change. I think we're at a moment where we need substantial change. I don't know that I will agree with all of what comes forward to us if this goes through the legislative process. But I think this is a really strong framework to get us started in this conversation. And I'm hoping that this conversation will result in some strategies to support the institutions so that they can also take on the curricular reform that is necessary, especially as we head into this brave new world with AI. So just an appreciation to staff and Ben for the bold recommendations that I think do set us on a path towards addressing this very real problem.
Thank you so much. Yes, one more, Commissioner Bibble, one more. Okay.
I wanted to say thank you for this report. I find it quite interesting and a lot of depth to the report. So thank you for that. And I wanted to ask if you could speak a little bit more to the first recommendation of institutional integration and what that may or may not look like.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously as drafted, very open, right? It basically says we would like the legislature's support and direction to enter into conversation with our university and possibly community college partners about to explore possible models of integration. And again, that could mean if you had a pretty ambitious approach to this and presumably institutions that were excited or had an appetite for it, it could mean something as, profound and transformative as full-on institutional merger. It could also mean something much that falls short of that, not in a pejorative way, but a different model where institutions are, for example, sharing certain services, but under some sort of common umbrella, right? We'll hear a report from community colleges shortly about some opportunities for that, and some of the challenges and limitations of that type of model. So it's intentionally open-ended. It emphasizes that this should, while all universities should be part of the thinking, priority should be placed on institutions that express some interest and excitement for it, right? I don't want at this point, at least, to sort of let any off the hook, right? I think that we ought to be thinking about possibilities involving all of 7 of the state's public universities. And I think we would likely look for where there's some momentum and energy from university leaders and where they see opportunities. I already talked a little bit about the rationale, so I won't go much further into that. But I will note, I don't see this as and the report says this, as a project in changing governance models, right? The reality is that you don't need a single system board in order to create system-like properties within and partnerships within public universities, or for that matter, within community colleges. They don't need to be consolidated. I look at states that have consolidated governing models, and they too are struggling with these kinds of interinstitutional partnerships. I'll also say that, and we don't use this language exactly, but we do describe this in the recommendation. When you look at places where this is occurring today, there are both vertical models of integration where a community college, let's say, is working with a nearby university and much more deeply embedding and incorporating and overlapping their services and programs, right? That is one version, a much tighter relationship between a community college and a regional, for example, regional public university, akin to what's occurring today, but even deeper. There is also sort of a horizontal model where the states, let's say the state's regional universities would be in a kind of tighter affiliation than they are today, sharing certain kinds of services or coming under a common policy umbrella. So those are, and we don't sort of put our finger on the scale about which is preferable. We say both of those are things that should be on the table. Maybe we move in both directions simultaneously.
Thank you.
We're going to move forward on this, and I want to remind you, partly because this is a discussion, and we will have continued discussion at our next meeting, not yet to be announced when. But I do want to just acknowledge that I'm quite excited about this recommendation. I probably could spend 6 months kind of changing a word here or there or something like that, but that's not my interest at this point. What I'm most interested in is providing I think, profound step forward, which we can present to the legislature, that becomes a framework for us having a different kind or different level or different power of conversation than we have had up to this point. And so this will come back to us. We'll have more discussion, but we will need to make a decision at our January meeting. So thank you, and we move on to the next item. So thank you so much. We are looking at implementing the report on our role in implementing the new workforce Pell grant, and I think Julia. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. My name is Julia Pontoni, and I am the Director of the Office of Workforce Investments here at the HECC. The Office of Workforce Investments works to ensure that job seekers have the skills and work-related training and supports they need to secure good-paying jobs, and that employers have the workforce they need to thrive. And one of the ways that we do that is by providing staff support and direction for the State Workforce Board, the Workforce and Talent Development Board. And that is why Ben tasked me with leading our agency's implementation of the new Workforce Pell Grant program. Next slide, please, Guthrie. Before I talk about Workforce Pell, though, I want to provide a quick refresher of the regular Pell Grant program. Pell Grants are federal grants that help students offset the cost of higher education. Like the Oregon Opportunity Grant, Pell Grants don't need to be repaid. To be eligible for a Pell Grant, students need to have exceptional financial need, to not have already earned a bachelor's, graduate, or professional degree, with some small exceptions, have earned a high school diploma, GED, or the equivalent, and be a citizen or an eligible non-citizen. And Pell Grants can only be used at accredited higher education institutions for undergraduate degree programs, with a few exceptions there as well to the undergraduate part, and then also credit-bearing certificate programs that are longer than 600 clock hours and delivered over at least 15 weeks. HR 1, the big budget bill that Congress passed earlier this year, expanded the Pell Grant program to provide workforce Pell Grants to the same Pell eligible learners, but those that are enrolling in short-term workforce training programs. So the individual eligibility is the same, but the programs that they can use workforce Pell Grants are the differentiator. This slide outlines the program eligibility for workforce Pell. The programs must be aligned with job requirements of high skill, high wage, high demand, or in demand industry sectors or occupations. They must meet the hiring requirements of employers in those sectors or of those occupations. They must lead to an industry recognized credential that is stackable and portable. And stackable means that students need to be able to receive academic credit that will be accepted towards meeting another certificate or degree program's requirements. There is an exception here if the program results in a credential that is the only recognized credential for that occupation. So an example of this might be a commercial driver's license, where the CDL is really the only credential needed for the truck driving profession, for example. That hasn't been determined yet, but that's an example of what might be exception to the stackability rule. And then portable means that it needs to be accepted by more than one employer. It can't be a program that's just designed for one particular employer. It's the governor's responsibility in consultation with the Workforce and Talent Development Board to determine whether programs meet those eligibility criteria I just went through. Really, some of these criteria need to be better defined. The U.S. Secretary of Education is to determine the remaining eligibility you see on this slide. Again, some of these criteria need additional definition. For example, what does it mean to be offered for at least 1 year? The Department of Education has begun a rulemaking process that will iron out some of these details. They just released draft regulations late last week, and the rulemaking committee is meeting this week. I think they're hoping to complete the workforce Pell part of their meetings this week. There is another session in January as well, but the intention of the Department of Education was for the workforce Pell regulations to be determined this week. Well, there's been a little bit of pushback on that, so we'll see what actually happens. The draft rules do pass on responsibility to the states to approve programs based on program length, cost, and outcomes. So the criteria that programs must be greater than or equal to 150 clock hours, but less than 600 clock hours, and they must span more than at least 8 weeks, but less than 15 weeks. And also, the completion rate must be at least 70% within 150% of normal completion time, and the job placement rate must be at least 70% as measured 100 days after the individual completes the program. So again, the draft rules pass the responsibility for determining those onto states, at least at the initial eligibility determination. And then this last criterion, the program cost cannot exceed the value added earnings. The value added earnings are the earnings above 150% of the poverty line. That amount, the program cost can't exceed that amount. Next slide, Guthrie. So what are HECC staff doing now? I've convened a cross-office group of staff to work on implementation. We're in the process of reviewing existing programs at community colleges and hopefully soon more broadly to get a sense of what existing programs might qualify. The short answer is probably not that many. These criteria are pretty strict, both in time and also those outcomes criteria can be very hard to meet. The length of the program, the 8 to 15 week length, is also more designed for a semester-based system, which we don't have here. So that's definitely going to be something that we'll need to work with institutions on. And then the Workforce and Talent Development Board staff have selected a vendor to conduct the board's biennial talent assessment. And in this iteration of the talent assessment, the consultant will be including recommended definitions for high skill, high wage, and in-demand industries and occupations, as well as other workforce Pell criteria that are under the governor's purview. That talent assessment process will include significant partner engagement through surveys and focus groups and interviews. So we'll definitely be looking for our partners to share their feedback there. And then our plan is for the Workforce and Talent Development Board to approve the recommended definitions at its March meeting. And I'm hoping to come to your February meeting and share the thinking currently around those recommendations and get some feedback from you before that goes to the board. And then the board will pass on the recommended definitions to the governor for her to make her decision. At the staff level, we're also working to develop a program eligibility review process, particularly in the event that we are responsible for verifying the outcomes, eligibility criteria and length of program. We're hoping to leverage the new LEARN system, the HECC modernization system, which currently hosts the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act eligible training provider list, which has some of the same criteria as Workforce Pell. So I think it will be a good system to leverage. And then, of course, we're answering questions from our partners and asking how we can be helpful. Next slide. This is just for your interest, the top 5 high wage occupations under our current definition of high wage, which is occupations paying more than the all industry median wage for statewide or a particular region. So this won't necessarily be the definition that we use going forward, but this is what it is now, and it just gives you an idea of what high wage means. And then next slide, Guthrie. This is our current high demand occupation list under the current high demand definition, which is occupations having more than the median number of total openings, which is growth plus replacement openings for statewide or for a particular region. Again, might not be the definition we use, but this is what it is right now. And then I'll just mention that high skill currently just means the occupation has a general entry requirement of some post-secondary education or training. Happy to answer any questions.
You have questions? Sorry. Julia. What? Julia. Yeah.
Commissioner Dublin? Oh, you're muted, Commissioner.
There we go. Finally, 4th attempt. Makes it. Just wondering if you can give a quick answer. A quick answer may not be possible. How does this interact with for-profit institutions?
If for-profit institutions are accredited, then their programs could be eligible if they meet all of the eligibility criteria. It's certainly a topic of discussion in the rulemaking process too. I'll also mention that non-credit programs are also possibly eligible, assuming that they meet the stackability requirement and all the other requirements.
And 2 quick follow-up questions. One, HR 1 was not an appropriations bill. So, but was there any recognition of expanding the dollars available for Pell, or are they merely going to thin the soup in a sense? And 2, has there been any discussion at staff that some of the programs that we have under Future Ready, we might be able to continue at least portions of those programs or assist with those with this new eligibility criteria for Pell grants?
To your first question, so eligibility or the amount that a learner might get under Workforce Pell counts to that learner's overall Pell Maximum Award. So in that sense, a learner isn't going to get more dollars under the Pell grant, but I don't think it will thin the broad soup as I understand it of Pell.
Yeah, and also note that HR 1 did include additional Pell grant funding. So the Pell shortfall, which still exists as you project out, is closed somewhat by appropriations contained within HR 1 for the Pell grant.
Mm-hmm.
Part 2.
Yes, and then part 2, yes, we are talking about the possibility that Future Ready Oregon funded programs funded by my office that aren't currently eligible for the regular Pell grant might be eligible for Workforce Pell. Again, they just need to be offered by an accredited higher education institution and meet all the eligibility criteria. But one of the benefits of potentially using the new Learn system is that it is, right now, our eligible training provider list is open to private career schools, for-profit schools, community colleges, even employer-based workforce programs, union programs, et cetera. So anybody would be able to apply for eligibility through there.
Commissioner Yamasaki.
Just a quick question. These projected openings, is this nationally or Oregon?
This is Oregon.
So it's interesting to me that the top wages aren't necessarily the high demand occupations. Right?
Absolutely.
And it seems to me that just at first glance, would it be fair to say that a lot of these don't require bachelor's degrees?
This only looks at programs that require or occupations that require less than a degree. So this list is.
Okay.
This is not.
Okay, that helps me. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I apologize if I missed this earlier, but, so does this mean that, students will be able to stack, this Pell Grant with other grants as well, or is it like one or the other?
So they can use this and then also get a regular Pell Grant, but the maximum amount of Pell Grant funding won't increase.
Okay.
Mr. Denver.
Thanks, Jim. You know, one thing that concerns me about people receiving the short-term Pell is that it may not really cover the full cost of attendance. And they may end up having to take out loans, and those will probably be commercial loans. And so I'm just concerned that, you know, that we, as the HECC, you know, really have a responsibility to advise people on, you know, just to understand the full cost of attendance, how they can, you know, commit to several months of deferred wages, you know, while they're doing this, just the, you know, the full implications of it. So people are going into it with eyes open.
Thank you so much. Do you know, there's any, I actually thought Commissioner Denver might address this, but I was saying, is this at all even theoretically accessible for people who are currently incarcerated?
That's a great question. It's the same, it has the same like individual eligibility requirements as the Pell Grant. So somebody who's better versed in that might be able to answer that.
If I can, people are talking about that as an additional level. Yeah.
Glad to hear that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will appreciate that report on for this new Pell opportunity. If it is okay, I'm going to rearrange, and I'm going to ask our president from Umpqua Community College, President Brent, and to present to us. I was willing to note for all of you that President Holder from Lane Community College indicated that she was unable to join us as she had originally planned. So we have you for us. So thank you so much for being here and talking about shared services.
Yes, thank you, Chair Heyman and Director Cannon, for inviting me. And I'm sorry it's just me because Stephanie really is my better half in this work. But she had lots to do on campus today. So my plan is to give you a brief overview of the work that the Oregon President's Council has been doing in the last few years to first inventory what we already do to share services, share programs, and collaborate, and then to also tell you what might be possible in the future. And there's a few shameless, good-looking and overachiever pictures of students in there as well, just to inspire you. So next slide, please. So about 2 years ago, OPC really had a robust conversation at our summer retreat about what we could do to collaborate more, how we might leverage some of the successes we've already had. And we invited a group called CHESS that is a group of community colleges and universities in New Mexico that about 6 or 7 years ago started to collaborate and then formed a 501c3 in order to share services across the state. And they came and gave a great presentation, told us all of the great successes and also some of the horror stories and difficult things about implementation, as you can imagine. But we got really excited about what could be possible. We decided, and the entire OEC voted, that we would move ahead and use our strategic funds dollars to support a study with 2 goals. The first was to create an inventory of the shared services and collaborations that we already do, because we realized that over the years, it kind of spiders out and people start doing things and you don't have everything captured in one place to celebrate. And then the second one, of course, was to suggest how we might share more services into the future. And I just want to point out that when we talk about shared services, sometimes it's just thought of as the operational pieces in the back of the house, but we really wanted to take a holistic view, look at academics and student services, really looking at everything we do at our institutions as a whole. And as a special note, when we talk about shared services, that it doesn't mean that we're going straight to reductions in staffing. I think that's something that people initially go to, oh, they're going to just hire 1 person instead of 17, right? And that really isn't the goal. It's about capacity building. It's to ensure that we can have greater impact, better talent, and more value across the systems. The next slide, please. So we hired an organization called Campus Works, who some of you might be familiar with. They do all kinds of work across the higher ed landscape and strategic planning and process support and things like that. And that work started at the beginning of this year, and it went all the way through to September. And there were so many data points that came out of this work. Stephanie and I, at one point said, please don't send us any more spreadsheets. We'll just take the synopsis, please, because this is too much information. But lots of interviews with folks at the campuses, really functional deep dives into what everybody's doing and how they're doing it, looking at models across the country, really in-depth financial analysis, technology, and lots of interviews with folks that do this work on the campuses. And you can read the full report if you would like to. I'm not sure if you shared that then or not, but feel free. But it's very long. If you need to get sleep one night, it could be great reading. Next slide, please. So here is what we learned about what we already do and how we already knock it out of the park. From shared Zoom licenses to procurement agreements to library services to institutional research support, technology services, and a lot in academics. We do an awful lot already to share. Just to sort of touch on a few of those, Treasure Valley Community College provides back of the house technology support and customer service for a few of our smaller rural institutions. Lynn Benton provides institutional research functions to many of the smaller colleges. UCC holds some licenses and facilitates some sort of limited library services across multiple institutions. And then we have an enormous amount of shared academic initiatives. And the report really found that all 17 colleges are actively participating in multiple collaborative initiatives. And they estimate that around 350,000 students are served through these collaborative initiatives right now today. So I hope you are patting yourselves on the back a little bit because you're in charge of all of us, right? And we're doing amazing work on your behalf. Next slide, please. So I wanted to highlight academics because this is really a strong area for us, and it builds that collaborative culture, has built that collaborative culture and a technology infrastructure and also a governance expertise that will be needed for the next steps and things that we might want to do in the future. We are used to collaborating. We're figuring out how to do it together. So we're ready for those next steps. The academic collaboration success really provides that template for what we might do next with some administrative services and further sharing what we do. So there are 75 plus documented academic sharing arrangements. So programs that maybe a larger college has that a smaller college wants to offer at their campus. Things like open educational resources. We do a lot of shared curriculum development. So lots of ways that we already make ourselves stronger and save a lot of money by doing these things together. Next slide, please. So these are the recommendations with our sort of overlaid plans that came out of the Campus Works report. And it's very much a 100,000-foot view report on what could be possible. The devil will be in the details, of course, with any of these initiatives, but we are ready to implement, and we're ready to implement some of those things in that quick wins category. Cybersecurity support is at the top of our list. When you are a smaller college, you need to be able to have the talent to fend off some of those bad actors that some of us have dealt with in the last few years. And in order to get that talent, we need to collaborate together and share some of that. So that's one of the top things that we plan to do here in the coming years. We believe there's money to be saved, and again, greater capacity to be had if we share some legal contracts, work together on that. We have some capacity at one of our community colleges to do a better job of really identifying some federal grants to go after and then managing those grants for all 17 colleges. We want to really increase that academic offerings piece. There's still a lot of opportunity there for us to be more efficient and provide better services to our students. And then we have this great institutional research arm at Len Benton Community College that's ready to really jump in and offer that service to many more folks. You'll see down there on the bottom, this is not free. I think both Stephanie and I, when we started this work, were seeing a lot of dollar signs and going, there's going to be a buttload of money we're going to save here. And guess what? There's going to be a lot of money we're going to have to spend up front in order to get to those savings. And it's really a long timeline for those savings, but we can see that in the future. And I think that's a goal of ours. So the Oregon President's Council has voted to move ahead with the quick wins. We realize that this is a difficult time to think about large investments because we're thinking about large cuts right now, but we're ready to look at those next steps and figure out how to get it done. You see here, these of course are really high level estimates. And the one thing that I think is important to point out is the idea of scale. So all of the colleges really have to come together in order to get to that next increasing opportunities piece and then a comprehensive plan. Campus Works evaluated that we would really need 8 of the community colleges to come together to get to that full implementation, but really the sweet spot is about 12 colleges to be all in on some of those things. One thing that's kind of on our list, but isn't on this formal list right now is transcript evaluations. We all have people who sit around for hours and hours evaluating transcripts, and we were trying to think about how we might share that service. It feels like there's probably an AI solution right on the cusp right now. There's some that some colleges are starting to use, and they're getting better every day. So we've not included that in the list because we think there's going to be a different solution. Next slide, please. So just the key findings again, we already collaborate, we already share. The infrastructure and the will is in place to increase how we share those services. And some quick wins are super possible. And those cost efficiencies, yep, they're going to be realized in the long term, but it's going to take a lot of investment on the front end to get that done. Next slide, please. We have some other decisions to make and some other pieces that are we are still thinking about. So the first one is that the universities are a little bit behind us in doing a similar study. And I think they're going to have recommendations or findings in the next couple months here. We're going to pause just a little bit. We think it's worth an 8 to 10 week pause to look at what was recommended by that study, because we think there might be some overlap and it might make a lot of sense for us all to be working together. We are still thinking about what organizational structure makes sense to accomplish these outcomes. So do we want to split off and make a separate 501c3 like the New Mexico model? Do we want to somehow manage it ourselves, which means it's probably going to be slower and a little bit more funky? Or do we want to pay for an outside vendor of some sort to come in and manage the project for us? And then, of course, what implementation resources are available to support these efforts? And final slide, please. Just to remind you that this is why we do our work. This is a photo from UCC's graduation last year. This is our why. We affect multi-generational prosperity for families in the entire state. And it's why we've decided to lead this work. Oregonians rely on us to continue to think innovatively. And I'm really proud of OPC for getting ahead of this and working on these initiatives and then being pretty excited at this point of getting to the next steps.
Questions or comments for Rachel? Yes, Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Chair Perry. Thank you for your presentation. Really appreciate the aspects that you mentioned about transcript evaluation, because I know that as my experience as a college student, I started at Portland Community College, and when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to transfer for my 4-year, it was very my advisor at the time, he was more focused he knew more about the how to transfer from BCC to Portland State, but not so much about SOU. And so I think that building an infrastructure that goes to every single university would be amazing, and would definitely help the process of getting the ball rolling on so much transfer process.
I bet you had to wait a really long time too, didn't you, to get those?
At least like a week or
That's
two.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we want to get better at.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thanks, Chair. With respect to the resource allocation, for startup costs, which I think is, I think for many of these things, I completely agree. Having some upfront money could really pay benefits over the long term. I'm wondering about our strategic fund for community colleges. Is that something that's been looked at as a potential use, as opposed to something for an individual college, something that would, focus better coordination among all the colleges?
Yeah, so OPC used its strategic fund to fund this study and the work so far. And that's probably our pot of, it's not quite enough to reach this goal, but that's our pot to get probably to the next steps of investigation at least. But probably not enough for implementation.
Good questions, comments? Okay. Rachel, thank you so much. It's fun to see just bring to the surface the level of collaboration and shared service initiatives that are already in place. Certainly, I was aware of some of them from my prior work, so I'm just eager to see where we go with this. I really appreciate you bringing this level of recognition, and then probably some foundational blueprint understandings for how we move forward.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'll just note from the chair, we do have some rules folks on deck, if you want to move up some items from the end of the day.
There are rules, folks. That's a high sales pitch. Okay, yes,
You'd like to move some up?
let's do that. It still seems a little quick for us to have a break after lunch. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna push it out a little bit, okay. Where are we starting?
Let's see, I've been speaking to a few folks on deck. Kyra Matthews, Brittany Miles, Matthew Altman, Shonda, Aloapo, and Rowan Frost. Is one of you ready to move an item up? Okay. Oh, a bunch of people are responding in the chat. Yes, let's go with Kyra first. Oh, never mind. Brittany was first on camera.
I win. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Heyman, and members of the commission. My name is Brittany Miles, and I am a policy advisor on the transfer initiatives team. So the NTM process change amendments clarify definitions and streamline how minor changes to the transfer maps are handled. Without changing student guarantees, institutional obligations, or faculty control over the curriculum. The rule amendment allows for minor clerical fixes to be handled administratively, and the transfer council to approve substantive modifications without the commission's approval. So all substantive changes continue to be reviewed by the faculty, then the transfer council, and finally the commission. That does not change. The proposed rule amendments change to allow minor clerical fixes be handled administratively to increase efficiency, auditability, and maintainability.
Comments? I know as the liaison to transfer council, I'm very supportive of this. Moving towards a more efficient model there. So,
And just to clarify, we're on item 10.3.
right.
Yeah.
Right, 10.3, not anything else. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Then I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve?
Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you so much. Next.
We have Kyra Matthews in the room for 10.2.
Great.
Right, good afternoon, Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simon, and Commissioners. My name is Kyra Matthews, and I'm the Scholarships and Grants Program Manager at the HECC Office of Student Accessibility and help with our policy analyst duties. I'm here today to seek the permanent rule adoption for approval for the Oregon Teacher Scholars Program. This is necessary action to implement our statutory changes that were made during the 2025 legislative session from House Bill 3026. They continue the modifications first adopted under the temporary rule that were filed July 22nd, 2025. The amendments align definitions and terminology with ORS 342.433 and incorporate language consistent with the Teacher Standards and Practice Commission and other HECC administered financial aid programs. There's about 6 to 7 things that the rules cover. Updating some definitions, including references to diverse as defined by ORS 342.433. Also update definitions for eligible institutions, teacher candidate, and enrollment status. Clarify eligibility requirements, including experience with diverse populations and residency. Create a special temporary eligibility rule for the renewal students that were awarded prior to the statutory changes. Establish prioritization criteria for awarding scholarships when funding is insufficient, clarify the application process, and establish some institutional record keeping that's consistent among our state grants. Since House Bill 3026 was declared an emergency, we had to do temporary rules since legislative years and academic years never align. So we had to make the temporary rules to be able to run the program. And now we're just at the timeline to make the rules permanent. There's no change between the temporary and the permanent, so we're just business as usual. So we recommend approval.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments? Clarifications? I would entertain a motion
Move to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you so much. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much. Flexibility there. Do we have something else on deck? I think there should be like a baseball.
Is Matthew Altman, Shonda Hawapo, or Rowan Frost available online?
I'm here.
Hey, welcome, Shonda. We can proceed then with 10.5.
Great, thank you. Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simmet, and members of the commission. My name is Shonda Halawapo, and I work in the Office of Research and Data. I am here to ask for your approval for the permanent rule amendment on Chapter 715 relating to the technical amendments to student parent data collection requirements. We ask for this amendment to the rule in response to feedback from community colleges. As you can see in the material, the amendment to the rule consists of taking out the skip logic in the two sequential questions and clarifies that the data must be reported at the student level and submitted during their regular student level data submissions. So I think we're just asking for approval for that permanent rule.
Thank you so much. Any comments, questions? Good. Yes.
Move it.
Thank you, Chairman. How does this relate to FERPA?
So FERPA? Well, it would be covered within FERPA, and we use that to make sure that student parents have access and to the resources that they need to be successful students. I guess I'm not seeing, what do you mean in terms of FERPA law?
Oh, okay. I may be misunderstanding the. Is there any? Can you clarify a little more on the ruling?
Yeah, so it's the original rule is based on, and I hope I get it right. I might have to return and give the right one, but it's Senate Bill 564, I think, from 2021, and it had directed us to work with the public universities and community colleges to start collecting data and identify the questions that everyone would use to collect data from students, identifying who or whether they're a parent. And it is, the rule as it currently stands requires that they ask it annually. This amendment just fixes an issue that we had with the two questions. And the question was, there was a skip logic. And the community colleges, some community colleges could not do the skip logic because they didn't have the technological resources. So this takes out the skip logic. Does that answer your question?
Can I speak to this? Because I want to respond, because I think it's a really good question, and I appreciate you asking it, because I think many Oregonians would likely be surprised if they have any knowledge of FERPA, that law permits colleges and universities that collect student data to share that data with a state agency. And so this data collection, this collection about students and as parents, exists alongside a lot of other information that colleges and universities are supplying us about their students. Their course taking, their demographics, their degree completion, that we use in a whole lot of ways that are permitted under that federal student privacy law. It means that our staff who handle that data, like Shonda and her colleagues, are heavily restricted in what they can, how they use that data and how they can share or not share it outside of the very limited research purposes that we apply. And so hopefully I got that right, Shonda, but that's
you absolutely did. I really missed the point. I apologize.
say something about skip logic too, and it's a survey technique, and you might know from Qualtrics or campus might use, where you say, are you a parent, or do you have a parent, or something like that? And yes or no, and if you say no, it'll skip you down past a whole bunch of follow-up questions. A lot of these schools don't have that technology to skip all of those questions, and so they need to reframe, I think, the question so that it acknowledged that you might not have a parent, not be a parent, whatever it is, and then ask questions to get you down to the next. Question.
Again, thank you.
So much for the clarifications.
Good question. I hope we understand it better. I appreciate that one. Anything else? Entertain a motion to
So
approve.
True.
Okay, I think Mr. Dillon and Commissioner Middleton. And any more conversation? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anything else at the moment? Oh, we have someone already.
We have some other folks on deck, or we can take a break, whichever you prefer, Chair.
I think, let's take a quick break. It'd be helpful to me.
Give us some time.
Okay.
Okay.
10 minutes.
Okay.
Be back.
We're in recess.
Thank you for contacting OSAC. This is Olivia speaking. Okay. Let me see if I can. Can you hear me okay? Yes, I can hear you.
Our audio is back on.
Great. We are back in session.
So you say,
And after a little discussing about the remainder of the agenda, we're going to move to item 10.1, which has to do with teacher qualifications. And I think there's a lot of interest in this. And so I'm intending to get to a decision. And it is an action item. And we're going to dedicate 15 minutes to this. So, we'll start. Donna?
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair Heyman and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Donna Llewellyn. I'm the director of the Office of Community Colleges and Workforce Development. I'm joined by my friend and colleague.
I'm Abby Lee. I'm the executive director of the Oregon Community College Association.
So I'm here today to present for your consideration amendment to Oregon Administrative Rule 589008-0100 relating to the amendment of community college instructor qualifications. As you may remember, the commission did receive a petition back in March from the Oregon Community College Association and the Oregon's President's Council requesting amendment to the rule. The petition requested the removal of the statewide credential requirements for instructors of lower division collegiate, or also known as LDC, courses to align their requirements with university practice. After receiving public comment from multiple interested parties and reviewing multiple informational sources and policies related to teacher qualifications, the agency responded, as you'll see in your packet, that institutional policies and Northwest Commission on Colleges and University, NWCCU, accreditation standards will continue to require rigorous and transparent faculty qualification procedures at each college. Removing duplicate state level language does not diminish institutional responsibility, nor the requirement to publicly disclose and regularly review faculty qualifications. The agency also clarified that faculty credentialing decisions remain subject to shared governance and external quality assurance mechanisms. Abby is here to provide some additional context and information.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction. And also thank you, commissioners, for your patience in this process. We are nimble at community colleges, and so we like to just get things done, but we also appreciate the time that you've taken to ensure a lot of input and feedback and conversations with many stakeholders. Essentially, we really are looking for parity as we share. We believe that there's been a lot of work across the state on transfer and on qualifications, and we think that simplifying and removing what we believe is an antiquated and outdated rule will provide more opportunities, particularly equity and access in our rural communities. Our community college faculty are highly qualified, and they have the same rigor as our university partners for accreditation, for outcomes, for input, and our community colleges require faculty input on instructor qualifications through our board policies, and we have a rigorous review, and if there are any concerns about that, there are multiple processes in place for that review. So essentially, we debated amongst ourselves with our presidents about these next steps and found that this would be the best approach. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or any concerns, but we really believe that this is an important step in ensuring access for dual credit members.
Thank you so much. I just want to call your attention to, you have a document on your table that addresses the 50. You haven't had a chance to review it. It'd be important for you to review it now. Again, this is an action item, and so I anticipate some question and conversation. I'd like to open it up for that at this point. Yes, I'll start with Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. So I was looking through the rule on this and looking for the language, proposed language, and it looks like if there needed to be a variance of qualifications, that the president of the university could waive that requirement. And so that seems, or there doesn't be, I imagine. So it seems like a rather straightforward process as is. So what problem is this trying to solve?
So it really is, I think, an equity issue. So currently, university faculty member can look and say, within this community, if there is an instructor at a high school who doesn't have a master's degree in that subject matter, so for example, doesn't have a master's degree in math, but has a master's degree in education and is also highly qualified because they've taken additional courses at the university level, that university faculty member has the ability to say, I believe that this person is qualified. At the community college level, a community college department chair or faculty member can look and say, yes, I also think this person who doesn't have a master's degree in subject matter expert should be able to teach this class, but then must go and get permission from a community college president. So their subject matter expertise is not equal at the university level. And so we are just saying within accreditation and within all of the standards that a community college faculty member and a university faculty member should be able to make those determinations and recommendations without one more bureaucratic step. And so it really is just a parity piece. So to your point, yes, we can go to a community college president and ask their permission for that, but we're really recognizing the parity and the subject matter expertise across the entire higher education spectrum. And particularly when we are talking about community college faculty who have often unique opportunities for closer connections within their regional communities than some of the university partners who are also statewide, and we value those pieces, but we really think that it is a disservice to the qualifications and I think the expertise at the community college level. Did that answer your question?
Commissioner Duff? Jumbo. Thank you.
Everyone's up there. Yeah, thanks. Alex, you may not be familiar with all the history here of, and I'm not gonna, since the chair is only giving me a half hour here.
Oh, there's 30 seconds.
No. You may or may not know that the community colleges here in Oregon were at one time under the same governance system as K-12. Actually, until fairly recently, until about 12 years ago. And the qualifications for K-12 instructors are pretty pretty clearly laid out in statutes, and that's normal. I think you see that around the country. Whereas higher education, that is, post-secondary, so community colleges, universities, the qualifications are generally left up to the department faculty and the individual institutions, and there are accrediting agencies that oversee us. I don't know this for sure, but my hunch is that this rule is kind of a holdover from that earlier time. So it was felt that that this needed to be stipulated in either rule or statute. And so, I think what's being proposed here is that, in pursuit of, treating community college faculty the same as university faculty, really this was not needed. What is needed, of course, is, to make sure that, the standards of shared governance and the faculty role in the development of the standards be upheld. And that goes not just for dual credit. I mean, we're going to be talking, I think, in a few minutes later on about, our vision for dual credit in this country and this state, which is important. But here, when this rule change was proposed, I did hear some concern from college faculty that as the board policies will need to be changed now that they won't make reference to state rule, it's up to the individual institution to have board policy, that the faculty have a significant role in the development of the new standards. That's, when you do, you will see that in accrediting language for some of the accrediting agencies anyway. And so, you know, I think what's being proposed here in this, this memo, which Abby, like to get your thoughts on this, if you, you're comfortable with this.
So I appreciate this having been in the packet and the opportunity to review this and to talk to our colleges. And I think this really represents standard practice. So to your point, Commissioner Dembro, if there's a board policy that points specifically to the OAR, and that has really been the concern, is that the OAR has been interpreted as an absolute restriction. And so it in some cases was absolutely prohibited. So if you did not have a bachelor's degree in that subject, then there was an absolute no, community colleges could not offer that dual credit. And yet a university would come in and be able to offer that dual credit within a community, which again, we want students to have access, but we're obviously bringing this from a community college standpoint, where we feel like we should have equal access. And so it has been limiting, it has been confusing, and we believe, to your point, antiquated from kind of the 1970s when folks were maybe concerned about community college rules. So this language to us really reflects the shared governance that happens at our community colleges, that our faculty do participate in instructor qualifications, and then that will just continue. So we don't have concerns with this language as proposed, and appreciate the clarification and opportunity to say publicly to our faculty how that is an important ethos for our community colleges.
Can I just say something for folks who are online and aren't seeing this memo in front of them? It is within our online materials as item 10.1C. It was just added this morning. You might have to click refresh or go in and out of your browser to find it because it doesn't seem to update automatically. At least mine doesn't, but this is a new half-page memo that was added to your packet for this item this morning.
Yes, Commissioner Middleton.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to just say, I really appreciate this memo being added, and that the respect given to my colleagues at community colleges, that instructor qualifications are established by the academic department, faculty, and must be appropriate for the programs and courses offered. I appreciate this memo being added to the rulemaking. Thank you for everybody who worked on this.
I want to add from my having been working at community colleges for 25 years, it took me a while to understand the issue, and so I think clarified it pretty well here. One of the things I kept coming back to, and Commissioner Denver has referred to this, is that the teacher qualifications are pretty well established in accreditation, and accreditation doesn't differentiate between a university and a community college. And so really what this does is say we're all going to play by the same rules, and it's the accreditation established rules and the established rules that they are faculty driven. That is all in that documentation, as we have gone through accreditation numerous times in my life. And I guarantee you that your accreditor looks at that information quite depth, and they talk to the faculty departments about that work. And I think as Commissioner Denver has represented, this is a bit of cleanup, and I don't want to diminish the importance of this. I just say I think what this does is it brings the universities and communications, community colleges into alignment on an issue that has been out there for a while. Thank you for that. Any further comments, questions? I think I see something from Commissioner Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question for you as I'm on.
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I just had a question for you as I'm online, and so I don't have the memo in front of me, so I just pulled it up. But I did want a point of clarification. Has an amendment been made to the action item we originally had, or is this still the same action item?
The action item remains as is at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes.
So if we did enjoy this amendment, we would vote twice, once on the amendment, once on the action item?
So just clarify process, because this is a little bit unusual that this memo was inserted into your packets at such a late date. This is a memo from HECC staff to commissioners that expresses our understanding about the processes that community colleges will use when they are amending their personnel policies in reflection of this rule amendment, if it is adopted, or this rule repeal, if it is adopted. We've heard from the Community College Association this afternoon, their shared understanding of this process, but it does not represent action that the commission is expected to take today. It's really just additional information for you to consider as you determine whether or how to proceed on the rule.
So if there was some controversy in 10 years about this, they could go back and this would give more information to the. I don't know. Whoever
Yeah, I think
it
it would express sort of a shared understanding that the commission had when it took this action and shared with community colleges as well. And I think if there were concerns about the way this was playing out, I think this would be a document that folks could come back to us and say, hey, you had this understanding, we're experiencing it differently, right? Let's maybe at that point reconsider the rule.
Okay, we will, I would entertain a motion to approve this action item.
I'll make them.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you so much. Any more discussion? All in favor?
We go to a voice
Mr.
vote.
Chair.
Oh, yes. We have requested a voice vote on this, so we'll, Guthrie, if you'll just call the roll and we will vote.
Yes, I will now call the roll, or call for a voice
Thank you.
vote. If folks could just indicate by either saying aye, abstaining, or against. Greg Hayman,
4.
Emily Simnett,
4.
Aye.
Aye.
We're not to have it.
Demetrius Davis Boucher.
Aye.
Michael Dembro.
Aye.
Richard Devlin.
Affirmative. It's aye.
Helen Edwards. Not present. Arnell Fajardo.
I have to abstain. I missed the discussion.
Okay. Devin Lawson.
Aye.
Teresa Martinez.
Aye.
Jen Proctor Andrews.
Aye.
Jennifer Smith.
Aye.
Mary Middleton.
Aye.
Gail Yamasaki.
Yes.
That concludes voice vote. And it has passed, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the, I think, great questions and conversations around this issue. Thank you for your work moving towards this end, and we move forward. So
Thanks.
thank you. Thanks, all of you.
Let's go to 10.4. Complete this 7. Yep. Sorry. Jesus. 10.4.
Okay, we are now moving to 10.4. Okay, which is one rule amendment on chapter 583. Cyril. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, and Commissioners. My name is Matthew Altman, and I support the Academic Policy and Authorization Unit, or APA. I'm here to discuss a permanent rule change for your approval. This change would amend rules pertaining to the HECC Office of Degree Authorization, or ODA. Specifically, the proposed change involves provisional authorization of schools by that office. You may recall that the Commission adopted a temporary rule amendment regarding provisional authorization in July of this year for consistency with federal regulations by allowing applications for ODA approval from schools prior to their beginning their application process, their accreditation process. This permanent amendment would make those changes, those temporary changes, permanent. In addition, 3 other changes are proposed. First, provisional authorization language has been edited for clarity in the rule, specifying more detail regarding other identified bases for provisional authorization. Second, language regarding the duration of initial provisional authorization and subsequent extensions has been consolidated into one section of the rule and clarified. And finally, the maximum available duration for provisional authorization, including any extensions, has been expanded to 6 years instead of 4 years. This allows for an additional 2-year extension if needed. This reflects the office's experience that some reasons for provisional authorization, such as the completion of accreditation processes, can take longer for a school to resolve than what was anticipated in current rule. Changes to this rule were discussed with the ODA Advisory Committee on several occasions, beginning early this calendar year and most recently on October 15th, 2025. The public comment period for this rule began with filing on October 22nd and ended on November 25th. A public comment hearing was held on November 18th, and the HEC did not receive any public comments on this rule action. So this is an action item, and we hope you will vote to approve this permanent rule. Thank you.
Do we have any questions on this item? I would entertain a motion to.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have approved that. Permanent. I so move. Okay. Sorry, no one was tracked or, okay, we are now going to move to items 10.6. No.
Good afternoon, Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, members of the Commission. My name is Rowan Frost. I'm the Sexual Misconduct Policy Analyst in the Office of Academic Policy and Authorization, and I'm here to ask for your approval for permanent rules regarding maximizing the response rates for the sexual misconduct survey and protecting student information. The proposed rules reorder some of the definitions, add a few definitions for clarity as schools begin to implement the survey, and provide some direction for schools to ensure that the ways that they are beginning to solicit responses to the survey continue to be trauma informed. The survey the rules were noticed and there was a public hearing on November 18th. We didn't receive any comments at the hearing or in the during the public comment period. And so at this point, we're asking the Commission, or recommending that the Commission approve the proposed administrative rule action as drafted.
Great. Thank you so much. Any questions, comments? Thank you for your work on this. I would entertain a motion.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Got it.
Second.
No. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Action item has been approved. Thank you so much. We are going to try and bite off another pretty large item. It has to do with transfer. So this is moving back to the 9.2345, that section. And I believe, Lee, you are ready to kick this off.
There.
Second the camera, yeah.
Okay. We're starting with the report, right?
Oh, we're gonna move.
The whole thing. Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Do you have the slides, Guthrie?
Yes, let me pull it.
Who is this? Is this mine?
This is 9.2.
So we.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Wonderful. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present the 2025 post-secondary transfer legislative report. This report fulfills the HECC statutory reporting requirements and summarizes progress on Oregon's statewide transfer initiatives, specifically common course numbering, major transfer maps,
core transfer maps and the upcoming measures of success implementation rules. Next slide, please. Today, I'll briefly walk through the major components, including progress made in each transfer initiative, key data outcomes, and next steps for 2026. Next slide, please. 2025 saw major milestones. Common course numbering has crossed the 50 course threshold. This afternoon, the Commission will consider the adoption of the communications MTM. If approved, that will bring us to 9 completed major transfer maps. And finally, the Transfer Council made recommendations to the Commission for a measures of success framework, which is up for adoption later today on your agenda. If adopted, this will become the backbone of statewide accountability starting next year. Next slide, please. The initiatives are still too new to see their direct effects in the statewide data, but the baseline trends are useful. Graduation rates for both first-time freshmen and transfer students have increased over time, although transfer students continue to graduate at lower rates than first-time freshmen. Transfer students also continue to accumulate more excess credits than their first-time freshman counterparts. Next slide, please. All institutions have fully implemented the required Z designator in their catalogs. That's the feature of common course numbering. The Commission's verification process helped identify mismatches between reported and actual implementation. The 2026 CCN alignment cycle continues expanding to the disciplines that serve the most transfer students. Next slide, please. Excitedly, the conversion from MOUs, so our HB 2998 universe for our major transfer maps, to CAPS, our Senate Bill 233 universe for major transfer maps, is now complete, which is really helpful, and it means we can really fully audit major transfer maps across the state. Another really important feature of this conversion is that it reduced variance in the lower division coursework for students from those earlier models. So they are much more streamlined and much more straight for students. This reflects a really strong commitment from faculty to simplify transfer pathways for students, and it demonstrates how MTM caps are becoming more accepted and a more used statewide tool, improving clarity and alignment across institutions. Next slide, please. Universities consistently self-report that they apply the core transfer map towards general education requirements. However, it's challenging to verify this in practice because only 2 colleges last year reported awarding any core transfer maps to students. So that limits our visibility of how they're being used. Community colleges generally acknowledge that the core transfer map, and so again, that's that block of 30 credits students take that applies towards general education, should be notated on student transcripts. But actual notation across the state remains inconsistent. Many colleges report having the capacity to notate, but that's not reflected in what we're seeing in the data. This again highlights this gap between self-reported readiness and actual verifiable implementation. Strengthening consistent statewide notation of the core transfer map and how we're awarding that should be a major focus for 2026. Next slide, please. The measures of success recommended by the Transfer Council and slated for approval later today will create a more accurate and consistent statewide understanding of transfer student success. Measures of success will also help close the gap between self-reporting by institutions and verifiable outcomes. The combination of student outcome data and institutional level metrics will help us better understand what is working well and where additional improvements or supports are needed. Next slide, please. So to recap, for 2025, we continued to build a more fully aligned statewide transfer system, and we began to move towards greater accountability with measures of success administrative rules. As we look forward to 2026, the Commission will continue to focus on alignment, accountability, verification,
and transfer student general education improvement, which we'll also talk about in greater detail in the next agenda item. Are there any questions I can answer about the report?
Commissioner Yamasaki.
Thank you, Chair. So I just am curious if there are unexpected consequences for students when notations are inconsistent on their transcript.
Right, so I think the main one is, it's a great question, is that if it's not noted on a transcript, it's hard to know that a student completed it. And so what happens when a transcript is received is that those courses, instead of being evaluated as a block, are evaluated on a one-to-one articulation basis on their best fit for that receiving institution, which means students may or may not have those credits applied towards general education requirements. I think another downside, if students aren't traveling to our public university system, but are traveling to one of our private institutions, they also have some initiatives aligned to our statewide blocks. And again, if they don't know a block has been completed, then students don't get to take advantage of some of those direct transfer pathways that they've put in place.
Thank you.
Other question? This is step one, this is an action item.
Yeah.
Accepting, approving this report. We have no more questions. I'd entertain a motion to approve the report on transfer.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you so much. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Now, on the basis of that, we move to the next topic.
Let me just, I get, my name's on the agenda, even though I can't what to say, but you skip me, Mr. Chair. Really, I'm here just to be sort of enthusiastic cheerleader for this item for Lee and her team, who have, I think, brought a terrific and new momentum to the work, to the Transfer Council and its co-chairs that I think have also sort of built momentum and built kind of capacity to engage in kind of bringing transfer forward, to the chair for being the commission's liaison to the Transfer Council and supporting it in its efforts. And this is a action item because you will be invited to adopt a vision statement, which I think reflects a lot of the implicit understandings and expectations that you as a commission have had for the Transfer Council and for the work that is unfolding. But this will really help to make it official, to put it in writing. If adopted, Greg will bring it to the Transfer Council at its meeting next week and express on behalf of the commission your expectations or the vision that you have for the work that it will be helping to lead. It is also, as you'll hear from Lee, you'll hear a very high level view of our implementation plan, going just beyond the last slide here and giving you a glimpse of what it will look like to implement this work over the next couple of years. You're not being asked to adopt that. I just want to clarify, you really the focus in terms of your action here is on the vision. Implementation, we'll, I'm sure, be making adjustments as we go and sharing that with you, but did want to give you at least a high level view of what that looks like, assuming that you adopt the vision and we proceed. So that, I should turn it over to the real expert.
Thank you, Janet. I have much here. Sorry.
All right.
Lee, back to you.
Back to me. Thank you. I'm really excited for this opportunity to share this vision with you today before I go into the slide deck. We know that too many students, as they transfer between institutions, that can feel much more like hitting a wall instead of opening a door. Credits are lost, courses are repeated, families are left with unclear information. These barriers cost students time, money, and confidence, and they undermine our shared goals of equity, affordability, and completion. This is why this vision statement matters. It imagines an Oregon where transfer is simple, clear, and fair, where credits move with students, where costs are lowered by preventing duplication, and where every public institution treats transfer credits consistently. At its heart, this vision is about building trust and confidence between students and institutions. It's also not just aspirational. It is grounded in research and listening. We drew on national studies and spoke with other states that share similar transfer profiles. But most importantly, we listened to Oregon's own institutions. My team visited all 24 institutions across the state in this last year.
This was something we've never done before. We didn't arrive with a checklist of questions. We simply asked, how is statewide transfer work going for your institution? And then we listened. Those conversations were invaluable. They shaped the priorities you see in this vision and informed the actions outlined in the proposed work plan. And I want to stress that this vision should not be read as starting over. We are building on the progress Oregon has already made and strengthening that work by providing clear direction for its future. So by adopting this vision, the commission signals a unified statewide commitment. It sets the direction for future work, guiding alignment, tools, and community education. And of course, assuming you adopt this vision, the natural question is, how will we achieve it? That's where the proposed work plan comes in. It outlines the next phase of transfer work, how we align courses and requirements, how we build clearer tools for students, and how we educate our communities to make transfer pathways stronger. Would you like me to move right into the implementation plan before you? Okay, yes,
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I'm going to share with you the implementation plan for the statewide transfer vision. This is, as Ben said, not a final document, and we're not asking for action today. But I want to walk you through the structure and timeline of the work and give you a sense of some of the major actions we're considering over the next several years. Next slide, please. The work is organized into 4 phases, spanning from 2026 into the next decade. While this timeline is long, it reflects the scale of the work needed to align transfer systems across all 24 public institutions. Some work may move faster, but we want to be realistic about the time and coordination required. Next slide, please. We're already beginning phase 1. This phase focuses on strengthening the core of our transfer system, which is in many ways common course numbering. So that's the priority, is to finish doing that alignment of the highest transferred lower division courses. Another major area is general education, and I will talk about that a bit more in the next 2 slides. To support that work, we are going to pursue a pause in developing new major transfer maps, because this general education work will ultimately make maps work better. So it's worth pausing to do that foundational work. It's also valuable, I'm flagging it here, even though we are all aware of the economic landscape, that if we are interested in a transfer portal, we want to secure funding for that as early in the phases as is possible. Right, next slide, please. General Education Complete is a major innovation in our transfer system. It's also directly connected to one of the actions adopted by the agency to achieve our strategic plan. Like this vision, this initiative is informed by national best practices, the work of the Transfer Council General Education Subcommittee, and what we learned from our individual institutional visits over the year. This tool will simplify transfer, it will reduce excess credits, and it will provide a consistent foundation for students. And we'll ask the Transfer Council next week to lead in its development. The idea here is that we want a transfer block of lower division courses, no more than 45 credits, that is aligned to outcomes aligned to our public university programs, so that when completed, a student arrives Gen Ed complete, right? So that is the idea here, is that we are aligning a body of learning that is equivalent to the body of learning that happens at public universities in their general education programs. Next slide, please. The benefit of doing this, even though it will be challenging, are really numerous. It ensures that students complete only one general education curriculum instead of multiple, which is what's happening right now. There is an endpoint. It provides a stable foundation for all of our other transfer tools, for the major transfer maps. It provides a new opportunity for how we think about the AAOT, a very highly used transfer degree. And it just simplifies the transfer and advising and cost for students. And it maintains a lot of flexibility for our institutions as well, right? So we're really excited about turning to this project. Next slide, please. In phase 2, we're going to focus on 2 main things: cleaning up the landscape by sunsetting less effective transfer tools and pathways, and updating the ones that remain. We have a lot of stuff in our transfer system. Some things work better than others. The other thing is we want to focus on some additional alignment, particularly Bachelor of Arts and Bachelors of Science degree requirements. Some statewide alignment of AP and IB credits to common course numbering and MTM coursework. Right now, what you get is really dependent on what institution you go to. The result here is just consistency and clarity across the system. Next slide, please. Once this foundation is solid, it's time for us to relaunch the development of major transfer maps with some stronger requirements. And we're kind of considering right now what we amend and clarify in our current rules and statute to make these work better. We'll also start thinking about aligning the major coursework in major transfer maps with the CCN standards to, again, ensure consistency and transferability. Next slide, please. The final phase focuses on long-term sustainability. We can lead the way in creating a culture of transfer in Oregon by facilitating learning opportunities and spaces to share best practices in transfer. Next slide, please. To support this work, we will need a combination of action from both the commission and the legislature. And that is still very much an ongoing conversation as we strategize the best way to think about going into the 2027 session. This is a significant undertaking, but it's one that will bring lasting benefits to Oregon's students and institutions. And I'm very excited to work with all of you and with the Transfer Council as we move this vision. Questions that I can answer?
Yes. Yes. Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair Heyman, and thank you for this report. I believe that this is definitely student-centered, and my question is about who will be deciding which 45 credits make up that general ed transfer block?
I am assuming, based on past practice of the Transfer Council, that this will be assigned to a faculty subcommittee because this is curriculum work. And so that is the requirement for all curriculum work, including maps and common course numbering. And so a faculty equal representation of community colleges and universities would be part of building that framework of deciding, again, so there's multiple steps here. What does the frame look like? Are we talking about buckets like we have now in the AAOT, right? Arts and letters, right? What it looks like, what the requirements are, how those categories are defined. That will come from a faculty subcommittee. Then individual community colleges will populate that framework with the specific courses they offer at their institution. So that's where the flexibility comes in. So every college might have a slightly different looking gen ed complete curriculum, and that does not matter because it's aligned to the same outcomes and has the same guarantees upon receipt at the receiving institution.
Thank you for clarifying the flexibility because that was my next.
Perfect.
Great clarification there. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Davis-Boucher.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, so I understand that this is more specific about Oregon Public Universities. And so I have a colleague who transferred from Pacific University, a private university, to Southern Oregon and almost lost like a year's worth of credit. And so I'm just curious, like what possible like bridge there is for private universities to the public.
That's a great question. I mean, obviously, our statewide legislative requirements apply only to the public institutions. But we have been starting to have some conversations with the Alliance of Private Colleges and Universities to talk about ways we can try to map our transfer initiatives to their institutions. So I think that's a great direction for us to consider and explore those kinds of partnerships so that our pathways work for students going either from a public to a private or a private back to a public.
Oh,
sorry.
Mr. Watson.
Just touching on the question and comment that was just made, I guess not really a question because you already a comment, I guess, to you. As I can speak from my own experience, I'm a current student at Lane Community College, and I am doing the AAOT Political Science Transfer degree from LCC to U of O. However, I previously planned on attending Reed College, but my understanding after talking with Reed College faculty and their staff is that almost none of the classes LCC offers transfers over to Reed College, which was something that was really devastating to me because growing up in middle school, it's always been my dream to attend Reed College. And I found out that I could not do that if I were to start at LCC with using Oregon Promise. So I guess when we're looking at how we will develop this moving into public to private correlation with the CCNs, the CRNs, just keeping in mind community colleges as well would be really helpful.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Thank you so much. Other comments?
I know it's,
Vice Chair Simmet.
I have a comment. My question was answered by Commissioner Middleton's question. So my comment is just one of excitement to see this go forward. I think having a general education block that is transparent to students and not having to navigate that on the university in that transfer end is huge. I mean, it's just, I could tell you anecdote after anecdote after anecdote of students that I've worked with around this general education block. So I think that is fantastic. And I'm delighted to hear that it is likely to follow the same process of having the faculty informed. I'm confident, of course, it would be faculty informed, and I think that is, I think the result is going to be really exciting for us. I'm also excited about the AP/IB. Having that consistency and not having to have those kinds of conversations when you're advising students would just be so delightful, so that you can instead focus on supporting the students in their major program and in their progress through school. So I am just so excited about this. Thank you so much for your work and for this extremely clear presentation. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Devereaux.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you very much. This is very, very exciting, and it's going to be hard work. I mean, I think you've been very candid about that. Is there anything we should be thinking about in terms of where we're going to see potential roadblocks or pushback, or, just where some of the particular talent is going to be? Because I can see them being, I know a lot of people would say immediately the challenges are going to be with the universities on the receiving end. But I think a lot of the challenges will be at the community colleges as well. Where many of them will have their unique sorts of requirements that align with the culture, the philosophies of their regions and their campuses. So I'm just wondering if there's anything that kind of jumps out at you that we should be thinking of.
Sure. Top of mind is the landscape, right? Right now, institutions are stressed. They're stressed. There's capacity strains, there's resource strains. Everyone is worried about funding. And so again, this is a lot of work. This is hard work. So we're again going to be asking institutions to engage in unfunded additional kind of labors that, even though they, I think, share these values very, very much, right? There's only so much people power to go around, right? So on the one hand, I think, and I'm saying that just because we're already seeing this, we've been seeing this over the last year. So I can imagine will be some apprehension here. I think another area, and it's one we can get ahead, is because fundamentally, I do believe that our institutions strongly share these values. They also want to see students be successful. I think the more we can engage institutional leadership early and really talk with them about some of the projects and things we're thinking about undertaking and really meeting them at the table, finding those opportunities to collaborate, finding those early wins that we can celebrate. I think the better that the work will be. So I think that's something that would be really helpful to get ahead of. I think sometimes, especially when the landscape is already stressful and then you hear about some big new change that feels like it came out of nowhere, our human reaction is often defensiveness, even if at our core we are maybe okay with it. And so the more we can, I think, signal publicly and bring people in and talk about it, the better that's going to be. But I do think people are a little bit strained in their general energy level for additional labor right now. So I expect that to be something that we hear.
It may be redirected behavior if we pause MTMs for a little
I
bit.
do
So
think that would be really helpful.
It's not a direct add-on.
Yes, I think that'll be really helpful and really appreciated. I do, yeah.
So, I want, like everyone already else, just thank you for your leadership in this. I've been able to be involved in the transfer council for half a year now, and there's just a clear sense of sort of growing direction, and a sense of understanding what the work is. Certainly it's product of everybody involved, but I think you've really given a focus to that, and the logical sequence of the action items here, is intentional, and that your progress report, which you approved already, leads to what I think is the logical next step, which is a vision statement about, well, so what do we do now? And I think your conclusions in your report recommendations are this vision statements is I think both just a logical extension, but it's also kind of bold. And I think it is critically important seeing the interaction between you and sort of how the Transit Council tries to understand its role and direction, things like that. I think this is a strong statement from the commission, because they are looking, from my perspective, looking for direction from the commission, saying, how do we go forth with this work? And I think this can provide that. And it will take a lot of work. It will take a lot of sort of fleshing out in the work plan, as you said. But it is clear, and I am excited to be able to bring this to the commission, to the transfer council, as a representation of what the commission hopes for and expects with regards to the work and product of the transfer council. So if that doesn't say enough about what I think about what we should do with this, I just wanted to make sure that I think it's critically important that we provide this direction to the transfer council. Any other comments, questions?
Motion.
Okay. I'm going to entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any further conversation? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks to all of you. Just a reminder, we do have more items related to this.
Yes.
So we have the permanent rule adoption. Is Amy doing that?
Yes.
Go for it. You get to come back, please.
No, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair Hayman, members of the commission. I am back. For the record, Amy Hawks, Director of the Office of Research and Data at the HECC. This is hopefully the easiest, quickest item for you today of a long list of items. This is a proposal for the permanent adoption of a set of measures, metrics to track progress in transfer. Last month, I was in front of you and described those measures with a presentation. Nothing has changed in them since that time. And so I submit them to you in your materials for your approval or questions.
Any questions? Any motions?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Middleton.
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Sidman. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, all of you. Great work. Come back to.
It's perhaps my fastest.
It is. Yeah, this is obvious to you, but I think especially as we relate to the vision statement, I want to remind everyone that while the core work of this transfer work really does fall in the hands of faculty, it ultimately comes back to us for approval. And which is why it's important for us to have established a vision direction for the council, because it makes that process when it comes to us much more transparent, understandable, and productive. So anyway, you have an additional MTM to present to us.
I do. We have a new major transfer map curriculum articulation policy in communication. It was named by the commission in August 2024 for alignment in 2025. The faculty subcommittee created 1 degree pathway in associate of arts transfer, which leads to either a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science at the receiving institutions. This MTM includes 6 public universities and 11 community colleges. So if your question is about the design of this MTM, an AAT leading to a Bachelor of Arts or a Science, this design was really intentional, and it was an attempt to solve a specific set of problems that community colleges are facing. And so the faculty subcommittee made this choice, as I've mentioned in kind of the docket cover. There's a difficulty for colleges in implementing multiple nearly identical degree pathways. And there's a struggle for some colleges in offering the full 2 years of second language that's required for a Bachelor of Arts. And so this design felt more flexible to the faculty who were building it, because there are credits available to tailor based on your institutional goal and which of those degree pathways you want to pursue. This map includes guaranteed general education credits beyond the 30 that are required in the core transfer map, and it relies very heavily on CCN-aligned lower division major coursework. It contains no variance, but as I mentioned, has a lot of room to customize those remaining credits based on student goals. The faculty subcommittee approved this at their October meeting, and the transfer council unanimously recommended it to the commission at their November meeting. Are there any questions I can answer about this map?
No, this is one of the more complicated ones. Appreciate your work. Entertain a motion. Thank you so much. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks to all of you, and thank you again, Lee.
You're welcome.
So-
Thank you.
And if anybody is not lost, we are moving to item 9.1. See, I'm wrong.
Oh, maybe it is 9.
It is 9.
I'm confused now.
No.
You caught me. It's 9.1.
9.1. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just commissioners,
No.
not to get too excited, but this is our last agenda item before the good of the order. So,
Really? Fair.
wow.
Race through.
All that stuff.
I think we all did it together. But it's no doubt difference. Who knows?
Yeah, no, it's not, he's a big one, right?
I don't want to change it. Maybe, yeah. Blame me if this goes south.
Did we just hear that we're between you and going home?
Yeah.
We would also try and be quick. Okay, we're ready. So, Chair Heyman, Commissioners, thank you. I'm Erin Weeks-Earp. I'm a policy specialist with the Office of Public University Coordination. Together, Eric and Christadel and I form a team that delivers on the standards implementation for accelerated learning college credit in high school, and we provide technical support to the colleges in their high school partnerships. Christadel McGregor, who's on our team, would have been with us today, but she's over in the building at the State Board of Education, providing this same update to them today. So we're excited that we're doing that dually across our systems. And we appreciate the opportunity to share this milestone with you.
Yes, thank you, Erin. Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, Commissioners, for the record, my name is Eric Schumann, and I'm a Career Connected Learning Specialist with the Office of Community Colleges and Workforce Development. We're going to go ahead and jump into our slides now and talk a little bit about our statewide vision for college credit in high school. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. So we're sharing this vision immediately here. We're going to come back to it. We're going to talk a little bit more about how we arrived and why it's important to have this vision. So we'll be bringing it back later in the presentation, but I'm going to go ahead and read it to start with here. So our vision for college credit in high school is in support of the state's education and workforce goals. Every student in Oregon will have access to college credit in high school. In these courses, students will build skills, gain confidence, and get a head start on their path after high school. Through intentional partnerships, high schools, colleges, and universities will create purposeful career and college experiences that reduce the cost of college and encourage students to imagine and plan for their future. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some priority areas that we identified in a statewide survey we administered about Oregon's vision. And we're going to tell you a little bit more detail about the survey in a few minutes. But let's start with that question of how will we achieve that vision? So partners around the state told us to focus on affordability for students and families. They told us that sustainable funding for college credit and high school programs will recognize things like the costs associated with quality advising structures and high school teacher and college and university faculty collaboration. They also told us that these should be credits with a purpose, courses that transfer widely, like common course numbered courses and courses that are aligned to a student's post-secondary pathway. And that these programs not exist in silos, but rather be delivered with clear, shared responsibility between K-12 and higher education. We also heard from Oregonians to prioritize equitable access to college credit and high school opportunities to ensure that all high school students across the state have access to a wide array of choices, which isn't currently the case based on factors like school size. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little bit of background on this work. So here in Oregon, we were one of 7 states selected from a competitive process of 20 plus states for an opportunity to work with the College and High School Alliance and 6 other states. The College and High School Alliance is a coalition of national, state, and local organizations collaborating to positively impact national and state policies and build broad support for programs that deliver college credit in high school. So we're collaborating with the College and High School Alliance. In the 6 states, we're also working with our Minnesota, New Mexico, Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, and Washington. All states are focusing on opportunities for rural communities, and each state selected a second population based on gaps in participation. In Oregon, we chose multilingual learners. Next slide, please. Okay, so why have a statewide vision for college credit in high school? All 7 states in our cohort were asked to create this vision as part of this experience. And why is that important? It helps us to align expectations that all students should have access to college credit in high school, that these are not programs of privilege. There are a lot of different types of college credit and high school programs, and a lot of associated terminology and acronyms, and it gets confusing. We want to be clearer about that by working on common language about college credit in high school, making it easier for students, families, and educators to navigate. Finally, through our vision and ongoing partner engagement efforts, we want to develop tools and resources for educators, students, and families to support both some exploration, but also purposeful credit taking that aligns with the student's goals. We want more shared understanding and increased predictability around both available and best courses and cost to students and families. Next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier, we administered a survey, a statewide survey, as did the other states in our cohort. We received about 600 responses from a survey that was open for a couple of weeks, which was really great. We had strong representation in our responses from throughout the state, including from rural communities. And a special thank you to our HECC colleagues, Endai Hardigan and Laura Edom, for their help with the survey dissemination. Next slide, please. A couple more survey data points. This just breaks down who we heard from by sector. So our highest representation was from the high school sector, followed by community colleges. Next slide, please. And also on that survey, we looked at roles of who was responding. And so administrator was our biggest number there. Excuse me, teacher, instructor, faculty was our biggest, followed by administrator on survey responses. Next slide, please. Following our survey, we held several listening sessions where we shared a draft vision and received feedback that helped us improve it. We heard from nearly 150 people at our listening sessions. You see a list of those there. And then the next slide will show you that we also got the opportunity to present to a couple of student groups, which was fantastic. We presented to the ODE Youth Advisory Council and the Career and Technical Education Student Advisory Council for additional feedback.
So talking a little bit more about students, the next slide is our vision again. Oops, right before that one. Yes, and then go on. When we say every student, we're really talking about a lot of students. So the high school students in Oregon, moving through some numbers really quickly, we know about 27,000 students take these courses every year through our community college partnerships, and about 13,000 more take them through our university partnerships. That sounds like a really big number, but ultimately that's only about a third of our high school students. And so that's the scope of our goal setting and our vision setting is we're looking for 100% access. Next slide is the end line there, the points that I just mentioned. So the orange line is the community college long-term trend. The lower blue line is the university long-term trend. So that's 27,000 students at the most recent dot and 13,000 below that. And you can see over time what that trend has looked like. Some external events, of course, influence how the numbers go up and down. But slow gain in university participation and some ups and downs in community college participation impacted both by COVID, as Amy Cox mentioned before, but also there was a series of grant making through 2013 into 2018-19. Next slide, why are we really excited about college credit opportunities for students in Oregon? This is a research study from 2018 from our partners at Education Northwest that was in the Regional Education Laboratory at the time. And it was found that these partnerships in accelerated learning were associated with really large gains for students in graduation from high school as an outcome, and enrollment in college as an outcome, and persistence in college as an outcome. So those are all things we want to support, and we want to support our institutions to partner even more widely to give these opportunities to more students. Next slide is our national findings. In 2022, there was a really big research study that brought together all the findings from various studies and said, what are the priorities in research and thus and policy recommendations. So they came up with 3 areas, and we really feel like we're meeting these 3 areas, and Oregon can really have a lot of work. We have a lot of work, and we will have a lot of work that really fits into these 3 areas. In policies, we do have really innovative instructor qualifications called sponsored dual credit. If you're familiar with the models, and we have a study coming out this spring that compares how sponsored dual credit is doing alongside our dual credit that has existed for longer. We also, in practices, are going to develop in the spring an advising toolkit that will be statewide information for advisors, counselors, and teachers who are facing our students, and for students themselves to understand better how to use their credits after they graduate high school. And in mindsets, really what Rudian presented this morning reminded me of how we need to work on mindsets and change mindsets in our schools and in our work with teachers and how they promote these opportunities for students, sometimes not for all students, but our goal is to promote them for all students. So a little bit more about our rural student population and our multilingual students, and then we're wrapping up. Rural students, we have seen through other research, also this is supported by the Ford Family Foundation, that enrollment, persistence, and transfer and completion rates are lower for rural students. This is comparing those students that if they had had more opportunities for college credit in high school and exploration, it is believed that they would have more opportunities to pursue post-secondary education. We want to show you a few graphs. Next 2 slides are the community college trend showing where the rural line trends, which is actually much more steady than our urban and suburban populations. So a smaller group of students, but very steady enrollment in our urban communities through community colleges. And if you can't see it, that's around 5,000 students more, 5,000 to 6,000 students over time. And then in universities, the next line, the blue one, sorry, yeah, that's up to 2,000 and coming up even a little bit above 2,000 in 2023. Multilingual students, so I'll try and explain this quickly. The teal line on the bottom is really where we're focused. So multilingual students in our K-12 system are about 1 in 5 students now. And we can look at the differences in this breakdown. This is in our accelerated learning dashboard that is supported by the Oregon Department of Education. There's 4 groups that we look at. So students who have been classified as English language learners and those who have not in K-12. And then we separate out from those who have been classified, if they've been classified in K-8 and not anymore in high school, or whether in high school they're still classified as English language learners. So that teal line on the bottom is the lowest rated participation, and those are students that are still classified as English language learners in high school. And so we know that they are some of the group that has the lowest participation in these programs statewide of all the groups that we've looked at. Their brothers and sisters and counterparts who were classified as English language learners in K-8, they're participating on par with all of the other students. And so this is the group that we're really going to focus on our technical assistance with the partnerships, is those who are still classified as English language learners in high school. So this is our summary that the policy project has 4 streams. It includes a state vision, advising toolkit, a communications plan, and a policy proposal. And so, yes, Commissioner Devlin asked, how are we proposing policy ahead of Kyle's timeline to get our policy projects through the HECC vetting process? And yes, both of those are happening at the same time. We're talking about our intention to put together a policy proposal, and at the same time, that proposal is going through the HECC process. But with our partners, we're being very transparent that if we're setting up a vision to include all students, we're also going to set up a policy proposal to ensure those supports and incentives, investments are there. So the vision is the part that's before you today. The next slide is just the vision again. Together, these efforts should lead to significant change, improving the experiences and success of new students across Oregon over time. This is an action item, and if you have questions or concerns, we are ready.
Commissioner Yamasaki.
Thank you, Chair. I have a quick question. Does it make a difference in student enrollment and dual credit whether the school, the public school pays for those credits versus scholarshiping those students because of their income status? So is there any correlation between that compensation and students' ability to participate?
We haven't measured it per se, but yes. There are many programs that do waive their fees and tuition for students who are on free and reduced price lunch, for example. And that does help students access their programs.
So just one other question. Is there a correlation between those who are taking dual credit at the universities versus the community colleges and where they transfer after high school?
Where they enroll,
Yeah.
we haven't looked at that. There are a few dashboards, and we could come up with information for you that show by institution how many students that have taken that institution's partnership credit matriculate to the institution. So there are a few national dashboards that help see that.
Sure, David.
Thank you, Chairman. I was very excited to see this presentation. Just to start off, I have a comment and a question that follows. And so the dual credit program was the reason why I was able to satisfy my foreign language requirement in high school going into college. And I also have a close friend who is like, so she started her master's in teaching graduate program before the age of 21 because of the dual credit program. So this is very valuable. And so my question is, and so because I see that the part of the proposal is for prioritize funding for courses like the CCNs and like tribal languages, and so specifically on the language portion, because I know that some students who are native Spanish speakers but are also bilingual can just satisfy the credit without taking the courses, and so for tribal languages, does that also apply if someone is bilingual, like they were raised with their tribal language and English, can they satisfy that credit without taking the courses? If that makes sense.
If both things happen, so if you're not taking the classes, that means probably you're enrolling as a freshman and taking a challenge exam. The challenge exams would then award you that proficiency and potentially that credit. Like Shelley Hodgson's presentation earlier today mentioned credit for prior learning for students coming into institutions. So yes, that is important and helps students. And I know many students that have taken advantage of that as well, yeah. Tribal languages in partnerships. I know in Eugene Lane Community College, for example, offers Guala language as a dual credit. So the student is in a high school and learning and getting high school credit and college credit at the same time. And that's what the partnership credit is.
That's awesome. I would love to somehow connect SOU to that as well, for the California and the climate tribes languages, because that's very exciting. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I have a, oh, start with Commissioner Andrews, but
Yeah.
after commissioners, I have a question and a comment.
Commissioner Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to go a little deeper on the tribal languages, do you have, or are you looking for a consistent method of certifying tribal languages, and or is there a pathway to use that seal of biliteracy for students, because there are many languages that are unknown to faculty?
We are not looking for a way to certify tribal languages because that's already done in the spaces of the tribes. And we're looking for adding tribal languages to the list of things that are really important to focus on and fund. And so that's why tribal languages shows up alongside Common Course numbered courses, tribal languages, college success courses. We're saying these are the things, if we were to narrow our focus, for example, of what partnerships should offer and really related to the transfer vision you just heard, in that general education for, right, we're trying to focus the students' course taking in terms of it being credits with a purpose. Tribal languages is in that basket of courses that are really important. And we just heard from our partners at the Oregon Department of Education that promoting and sustaining tribal languages is at the top of their agenda for the student success plan for Native American and Alaska Native students. So that's why it shows up there. And how we do it is promoting what already exists in the partnerships.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So in terms of the HEC's role here, you know, we certainly, I think it's great that we're setting a vision. And the HEC also has a role in setting the standards, which you all have done. And that I think is really important. And as I understand it, and Erin, you've been very helpful in helping me understand this. The HEC also has a role in seeing how these agreements are going, right? Seeing how the standards are being met, you know, that there is a sort of self-study and self-review, peer review kind of process. And I wonder if you'd say something about that, because I think that is important for us to understand the resource that the HEC is here.
What could we say about that quickly? Yes, so we have a process in Oregon that's actually unique nationally because there's a national organization that offers accreditation to partnership programs. That's called NACEP, the National Alliance for Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships. In Oregon, we've adopted those standards to Oregon, and we have a self-study and review process that's just Oregon. So we have a set of standards, and they're very thorough because they were made in work group. And we ask all the colleges and universities who do partnerships to document their practices. And then we have that in a packet that's shown to their peers on a volunteer basis. We have peer review, and then we have an oversight committee that votes and supports that process moving through the peer review approval. So because of that process and all the technical supports that are in it, we know that our programs are really well aligned. I think, is that what you're looking for? And if I haven't answered your question.
Thanks. I have another, if I could. In terms of deciding who partners with whom, that's completely an institutional kind of decision, right? The HEC doesn't have a role to play in partnering up different institutions.
Right.
Yeah. And, you know, we did, you know, earlier on when we talked about the instructor qualifications issue, you know, nobody said this exactly, but you know, I get the sense that there's some elbowing here, especially between universities and colleges.
let me see. Hello, Commissioner Proctor Andrews, can you hear me? Commissioner Lawson, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you, Guthrie.
Okay, we had a slight interruption due to loss of internet in the building. We are going to proceed with our final item.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I was just sort of rambling. This sort of broad question of, you know, should we be thinking about, well, is this a real issue? Is this a real, you know, question that has been deliberated? Is this something that, you know, we all should be thinking about?
Commissioner Deborah, I would say yes. We hear about this really closely with a practitioners group called dual credit coordinators and staff who coordinate these programs at community colleges and universities. I think that there's really good partnership happening with those folks, but we do hear that. We do have data collection where we look at partners, multiple education partners operating within the same high school building to deliver college credit opportunities. We delivered those reports through the coordinators network and facilitated conversations about overlap. But it's been and more, you know, we're aware of it, they're aware of it, and we're trying to encourage the partnerships, the university and community college partners to discuss those situations too.
When we applied a year ago to this project to do policy development, that's a little bit of the landscape that we described, that it's not a problem to fix, but with the levers that we have with current laws and rules and processes, it's a problem that we can't move forward with our equity agenda without solving some of these ways that the partnerships are so localized that the cost is different, even within the same high school building, not equitable. The teacher qualifications are different, even in very closely related areas. So we envision in the next year or so that we take some of these problems and steer them towards a more streamlined, more helpful way of working that might narrow how things work, but also be very intentional to students.
Yeah, I would be very happy to see that on. So I really appreciate that. The other thing I would request is I remember I think it was in 2019 legislature talking about supporting high school teachers who needed to go back to graduate school to get credit to be fully certified on their own, you know, in the high school, and you know, to do dual credit. And I think the HECC did a report around that. And ultimately, the legislature, I think, did not maintain funding. I think there was supposed to be funding through the Department of Education. And, you know, I'm just wondering if going forward, it wouldn't make sense for us to do a request again around that. So I just, or, you know, or perhaps, and I know this may be a stretch, but perhaps ask our universities to provide fee remissions for high school teachers who are seeking to be fully accredited, you know, to have meet the not necessarily qualifications, or to come up with some sort of strategy to partner around that.
Yeah, no, it really at the risk of belaboring this, I'm such an advocate for multilingualism that I think Aaron in some ways undersell the slide that shows the participation rate of students who were English language learners K through 8, exited that through proficiency, and actually access these courses at greater rates than the overall non-English language learner population. Is close, but it's kind of remarkable if you think about it. These mostly immigrant children who have started in ELL in Oregon public schools, exited ELL by becoming proficient, are accessing college credits in high school at greater rates than their non-ELL peers. And then you noted that for high school students who are designated as English language learners, recent immigrants, that rate of participation is much lower. That should not surprise us. These are students who are acquiring English in high school as language learners. So that should not surprise us, but also probably warrants attention at how we serve those students with college level work, maybe in their native language, right? If not in English. But my question, and again, this is happy to take this offline too. I should have thought of it sooner. We had the earlier report today on the credit for prior learning. It noted the extent to which AP and IB is part of the toolkit in high schools to support students in accessing college level material, not college credit until they matriculate. Of course, that's the distinction. How do you think of that when you kind of in parallel with or in connection with this 100% goal? If we got the 80% on dual credit and the other 20% were in APIB, would we be satisfied? Does the measure reflect that? How do they work together?
That's a great question, and thanks for the clarification, because over at the Oregon Department of Education, that's definitely something that we're talking about in terms of what is the basket of options. It's an advanced placement course, it's an international learning course, it's a dual credit course, it's a career technical education certificate program pathway. So there are lots of ways. It's taking classes during the summer or online at the local community college or at the eCampus at OSU. So it's actually like a pretty big universe of things. And part of that mindset shift is that's not only for the students who've exhausted the courses at their high school or who are graduating early, starting college early, but this kind of bridging can be helpful for all students. So even if we aren't going to continue to push all students to enroll in college right away after high school, we should push all of them to explore what it means to explore and then decide what to do. But that's the push, and absolutely our colleague Crystal McGregor would say there's a lot of opportunity to be doing this in the high school building, sometimes in partnership with a community college, sometimes in partnership with the university, and sometimes with the college board and advanced placement, sometimes other formats. So hopefully that answers your question, but we could talk about this a lot.
Thank you so much. I have one. So I started as a school teacher in the K-12 system before you were born. And remembered the beginnings of this idea of college credit being earned while you were in school a long time ago. And it was very much designed around the advanced accelerated student. And in fact, we had criteria that we had to, in order for a student to have access to this. So I just want to tell you how appreciative I am that your vision statement that we're looking at today is committed to the idea that this is something that's accessible to all students. I think we always have to be mindful of how different kinds of opportunities could actually exacerbate the inequity in terms of educational success. And so you're very intentionally working to make sure that that isn't a product of credit. So I'm grateful for that. There's other things I'm grateful for, but that's what I wanted to focus on, because I think if, without paying attention to that, we sometimes contribute to the inequity of outcomes. So I'm grateful for that. Other comments, questions? I would entertain a motion to approve this vision statement.
Second.
Was there a first? Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Can people online vote?
They can hear.
They can hear
Yes,
us.
we can hear.
Thank you so much for this work. Exciting to see the directions we're taking in this. Okay, well, Ben did almost. Okay, Ben did almost jinx us. Okay, but, we have one additional item, we still finish almost an hour early. And that is a provisional order. Now, I'm really, how would you say, not demanded, but I really encourage us to have this agenda item. I'm going to explain to you what it is. If you're not familiar with it, so we don't go off and do something else with it. Okay, this is not the beginning of a whole new discussion. Okay, this is not like, oh, wait a minute, agenda item, I didn't talk. It's none of that. What it is recognition that, we don't see each other all the time. And we have ideas, or we may be involved in something else that has application here. It's simply an opportunity to say, well, I'd like to talk about this sometime. I'm involved in this, and I think it applies to what we're doing, and I want you all to be aware of that. And so, for the good of the order, does anybody have something to offer to the work of the Higher Education Coordinating Commission?
Well, I'll say something. So I am looking forward to a conversation on how we might be bold and innovative as we talk about this collaboration or working together with the community colleges and the universities, how we might be bold about our thoughts. It's more than efficiency, I think, but I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah, I echo that. And in fact, Commissioner Deborah and I have been talking about that recently. And collaboration, it's the word that comes to me, between community colleges and universities. I'd like to see us as spearhead them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I have a note here that I was going to request at some point, to maybe talk about the mission of the community colleges and the missions of our universities, and like, what are the purpose for their goals? What's their intentions? Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm late. I've attended community college, I've attended universities, and so, but I'm just wondering if I just need a refresher. Who they think they are.
Yeah.
It's like a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yes.
So again, in the spirit of these comments, and I think in light of the very full agenda that we had scheduled for today, as far as the time and making sure we stay on time, I'd like to make us think broadly about, like, where are we spending time in our commission meetings? And is it really on the most important, most crucial things that require our collective discussion and difficult conversation? For example, the funding, the efficiency topic. I mean, that seems like something we should be spending more time on in future commission meetings. So just throwing that out there just for consideration.
No, I appreciate that. I think we are having conversations about what can we condense or deal with more with brevity and give ourselves greater time for those things that we think are important. So I appreciate your, indicating support for that approach.
Commissioner Lawson.
Commissioner Lawson, yes.
Mr. Chair, I'm so sorry. The audio is a little choppy just because we're running on cell data. Could you please repeat the question? It was really hard to hear.
I can't hear.
Could you repeat the question? For the good of the order.
Okay, for the good of the order is an opportunity to, I guess, provide information that may be germane to our work, to provide feedback that might guide our future work. Not a new conversation here, but just a bit that says, hey, let's think about this. So that's a little too general, but that's what it is.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd love to
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, Commissioner Yamasaki. I guess one of the things that I've been thinking about for a while now, this is my third meeting, but I was thinking to possibly make it easier, and I'm bringing this experience from other boards. Perhaps we could create a more simplified avenue to put things on the agenda item when a commission finds it imperative that we do a certain action as long as it has the approval by the chair, the vice chair, and of course, Ben as our executive director. We have that same system on a school board for the Mackenzie School that I used to sit on a committee for, and I think that it would be extremely helpful here on the commission.
Well, thank you for, Guthrie. I'll just need to summarize so I can spot all this.
Yep.
So, you had one more.
Yeah, just one more. I would like us to go a little deeper about the accelerated learning. And if it really is an opportunity to provide access, that there needs to be some understanding on how that access is provided, whether it's the institution pays the tuition or just to get more details, because I'm not sure it's equitable and accessible equally.
I just have a couple, I wanted to echo Commissioner Farhard's suggestion about like really thinking about where it is we want to spend our time in our discussions. And setting, like being really, like having the agenda really intentional for a discussion session. And I mean, I know that we have that the agendas come to us late because, I mean, they come to us as soon as they can come to us. But if there was some forward-thinking planning, then we could, I mean, with the strategic plan, it came up at certain times. If we knew that like thinking more about the recommendations was coming up in a couple of months, that would allow maybe some more time and preparation to think about and where that the direction that discussion might go.
Look at that topic calendar.
Yeah.
More.
Yes, hot topics. Well, they don't have to be hot. And I have one more.
Go for it.
Since I can have the floor, I would be remiss if I didn't share what a group of my students was working on this semester. They were studying public controversies, and one of the controversies that they unearthed from the past in the University of Oregon was around freedom of speech, and a student at the University of Oregon in the 1960s who stood up for protecting sources on an article on marijuana, and then had impact on state shield laws. I bring that up because what they found most useful about looking into the past was what that told us today about the current moment where freedom of speech on campus is so